Question number 3, Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he have confidence in his Minister of Health, given the Minister's statement regarding the funding of Keytruda that Pharmac, quotes, haven't got the money at the moment, that's the issue, end quotes.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Why did he cut health funding in 4 of his 7 budgets, a total of $1.7 billion, denying Kiwis access to modern medicines like Keytruda?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker,
Order.
Given health funding has gone from $11.8 billion to $15.9 billion in the time that I've been Prime Minister, it's not hard to see why the New Zealand public don't take the lead of the opposition seriously when he gets up and just makes it up and it's plain wrong.
Supplementary.
Order. Order. Order.
Oh, he's away already.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
How on earth can the Prime Minister possibly say that when his own minister said on radio this morning that Pharmac hasn't got the money at the moment? That's the issue.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The member needs to read the supplementary questions they write for him before he comes to the House. What he actually said in his previous question was that in 3 budgets, health funding had been cut when it hasn't. Of course, if Pharmac has more money, by definition it can fund more drugs. I'm quite confident that under this government, Pharmac will get more money, and I'm quite confident that at the moment Pharmac are undertaking complex commercial negotiations looking at melanoma drugs.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Given there is no effective frontline treatment for advanced melanoma currently funded, will he tell the cancer sufferers here today why there is money for flag referendums but nothing that's going to help save lives?
The Right Honourable
Speaker,
Prime Minister.
At the moment, the government funds about $800 million a year into Pharmac. Of about $131 million goes into cancer treatment. This is a government that has increased their expenditure, and I have no doubt will increase it again. One thing we do know, though, about Keytruda is that it's effective for 1 in 3 patients that take it. 2 out of 3 do not. There are other drugs in the market and other drugs which potentially might be more effective, and at the moment, Pharmac is in the process of complex negotiations to sort out which one might be best.
Oh, okay.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Is he serious in his answer that New Zealanders desperate for this frontline drug might have to wait for the budget, and knowing that 1 New Zealander a day is dying from melanoma, that's another 90 people who will give up their lives while they wait for this government to do something?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The government is working through the process with Pharmac, and I think that is the right way to go. I might simply make the point that actually putting Keytruda and the issue of melanoma to one side, there are actually also a great many other drugs which are unfunded, for which other New Zealanders are dying. So in the end, it is an allocation of resources. The government's putting in more money and it will continue to put in more money.
Tell him the real truth.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Can he not see that those New Zealanders suffering from melanoma, desperate for a treatment, cannot put that aside? And can he respond to the woman suffering from melanoma who I spoke to today, who said New Zealanders don't have time for him to piss about on this issue?
Order. Order.
In fairness, Mr Speaker.
I'll let the Prime Minister address the question.
Yes, Mr Speaker. If one looks at the health system under a national-led government, not only has its funding increased by more than $4 billion, the amount of elective surgical operations increased dramatically, the state of the DHB's dramatically increased, the amount of money going into cancer drugs increased, and the amount of money going into Pharmac increased. We live in a world where there will be more and new biological drugs that will come along, and they will put even more pressure on future governments. We have a system that we work through, but we're quite conscious of that, and we're putting in more money. And I just say, Mr Speaker, we have enormous sympathy for the issues with those individuals at the moment, but there are also other drugs and other issues which get less profile as well. If the member wants to be fair, he should list all of those. But then also, he should stop asking for money in certain areas and say he wants it all directed to Pharmac. But that is not actually the policy that Andrew Little's talking about.
Supplementary.
He'll talk about his own
Order.
policy, thanks.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
In view of the statements by the Minister of Health this morning that he has great sympathy for those suffering from melanoma and who have no treatment, is that all that melanoma sufferers in New Zealand can hope for now? Sympathy from National Party ministers?
The Right Honourable Prime
Mr.
Minister.
Speaker, actually, no, it's not a very good question, because if the member was listening, he would hear this response. A, there is more money going into Pharmac. B, Pharmac is going through complex negotiations. C, over time, I'm confident we'll get these things. But, Mr. Speaker, at the start of this year, Andrew Little got up and told New Zealanders the most important thing was that more youngsters got more money towards a student loan that's already 70 or 80% paid by taxpayers in New Zealand. He didn't get up and say more money for Keytruda. He didn't get up and say more money for other drugs. He got up and said students who get 80% of their funding already paid for by the taxpayer, who earn more money than the average wage, they're his number one priority.
Order. The question here. Order. The answer to that question was too long. Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Take the bill, John.
How on earth can he, as Prime Minister, plan for tax cuts while Kiwis are dying because of a lack of treatment for melanoma?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The member will need to wait for Budget 2016 to see what the priorities are. But, Mr. Speaker, under a national-led government, the health system of New Zealand is run well. Under Annette King, I would have my head down in shame the way she ran the health system in New Zealand.
Charlie, you've lost it now.
Order. I don't want to specifically mention people who are interjecting too much by name. Order. The member's been in it all afternoon, actually. Question number